stop doing this. You
Right,
know,
right,
just
right,
don't do it.
right, right. Because as far as boycotting, you're gonna have like if we all say, look, we're not going to the games this year. For every one of us that say we're not going to the games, it's gonna be 10 of them that have never been to the game before. They're gonna go because if one way they're gonna go because they know we ain't gonna be there.
Yeah.
So as far as that economic, something like, look, if you really want to do something, I tell you what, go to a sports bar, watch the game for free. Get something online where you can watch the game for free. Get it for free, and then so that way you don't lack out on you enjoying it, but also because you're not giving them your finance in terms of that's the best thing that
That's the
you
best thing.
right.
They said that we're the people that keep this country
Right.
running because we quit to spend our dollars.
But, well, like I say, but I'm gonna go to the game. I'm not going in the game, and I am gonna take a knee when I hear that national anthem. I'm taking, and people, man, I done got people say they're gonna do something to me if I be out there doing it. Oh, yup, I sure have. This one got, huh?
They are very violent.
Yeah.
You know, we aren't violent when it comes to, when you see those children or being a parent and your children in sports, I see them being more violent as parents
Yeah.
during the game
Yeah.
because they upset about their kids
Yeah.
than we are. So that just
Mhm.
kind of tells
Mhm.
you how much they are invested.
Right.
Their lives are invested
Right.
into sport.
Right. Right. You know. And just like what we were saying before, I think that in the back of their mind, their whole dynamic is that, they have engineered us as a people for well over 200 years. When we finally got them chains dropped off of us, they felt like, okay, you don't know who you are. You don't have no name. You don't have your names. You don't know nothing more than what we have given you. Because I mean, can you even imagine being on a plantation for 60, 70 years of your life, and you've never even left that plantation? You may have heard of other places through the white people talking, or maybe another slave joined the plantation. They say, "Oh, I'm from wherever." And like, "Oh, what's that like?" Or whatever. But you have never even stepped foot outside of at least that town proper. I mean, we can't even imagine the mentality of somebody like that. But that's us collectively as a people. So it's like, okay, so the great Abraham Lincoln have did what he did, caused us to be free, and now everything that we aspire to be, being a great American, has to be the center of it. So there's no way that you can be conditioned to the fact that you will denounce the Pledge of Allegiance or denounce any of that. You're not made to do that. You're not wired to do that after all this time. You're not even wired to see yourself as individuals, only as Americans who are now freed slaves. And so when you think outside of that or you act outside of that, that's very offensive to them. And I think they be offensive without even understanding even why they're offended by it. Because it catches them by surprise, basically.
Yeah, yeah, I can say it's that fear because if they can white us out,
Right,
you know,
right,
just like Abraham Lincoln tried to do that,
right.
by trying to impregnate our people,
Mm-hmm.
then it'll be a way to figure out how they can control us and become the majority to where they can influence us.
Yeah.
And I think it when it comes to traditions and things that are passed on, it makes us as a confused people
Mm-hmm.
because we still have some of their traditions and their way of
Mm-hmm.
thinking infused with us.
Right.
Way that we're as a nation supposed to be, as
Right.
Israelites supposed to be.
Right.
So I think the only way that we can get to where we're supposed to be is just by staying in the Word.
Yeah.
If we can stay in the Word and
Right.
with that
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and understanding,
Mm-hmm.
then we can be able to understand what we're reading,
Right.
and know how we are to go forward and
Mm-hmm.
move forward as a nation.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're going to start this off in Exodus, because Moses is going to be the first person that we're going to look at. And no matter how many times we read this, or any part of the scripture, it's always in a direction that you read it. You're like, wow, okay. And this direction was with me, dealing with my friend yesterday and just looking at it, just like, man, that the Father definitely deal with us according to our heart and integrity until He brings us to where He needs us to be. And Moses is a real good example of that. And the second one I'm going to read is David. That was just deep. You brought up David because he's absolutely the second one that we're going to read, which is absolutely my favorite ancestor. I love everything about David. Everything. Let me see. So Exodus and I'm going to start at the first. I'm just going to read the first 2 chapters of Exodus. I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, "Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation." And again, this always marvels to me that the 12 patriarchs, they never even saw a nation of Israel. They never even lived as a nation. They lived inside of a nation like we living inside of a nation. It just, because sometimes in the back of your mind you kind of would just think that they would say that we're Israelites or whatever. Mm-hmm. They didn't know nothing about Israelites. Mm-hmm. They didn't. And I think that's one of the reasons why we use the term Hebrews, because that's what they were called, Hebrews.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And verse 7 says, "The children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly." You know what? This, I'm going to have to look. That might have been the first time they might even use that term, children of Israel, and later on, Israelites. Because you go back, they're actually alive. So they wouldn't call them Israelites, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, it says again, "And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there rose up a new king over Egypt, a Mizraim, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, and lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land." So when you look at the parallel, you could see us being here, and the people like the alt-right group and the so-called Tea Party and all these people that claim America, their America they claim is America that keeps us in our place. Mm-hmm. But we don't really see that subtlety when we see them on Fox News and stuff like that. But that's basically what it is. And this cat here would have been a Fox News, celebrity like Donald Trump or somebody. Because while we think we're in Egypt, minding our business, farming our land, whatever, this person comes up and he sees a difference between us and the other Egyptians, and we weren't doing nothing but minding our business up to that point. Mm-hmm. The scripture don't say that there were Israelites that were saying, "Oh, we're going to be better than the Egyptians," or whatever. It don't say that. It just, we were there in Goshen, and we knew that we were living halfway decent because our ancestor, Joseph, was the national hero in the land as a king, so to speak, of Egypt. And that's all we understood. That's all we knew. But now this Donald Trump comes up and be like, man, he sees a difference between us and his people, even though we're one nation. You know, and that's what he say. He say, come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply and they come to pass. And so he's dealing with not a prophecy. He's dealing with a scary mindset or something, a fearful mindset. I don't know if the fear came because we don't really like them, or the fear might have came from, like we look at the Wall Street Tulsa thing. They're doing good. We got to burn their neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? That's exactly what is happening. They're getting mighty. They're getting strong. But this is our land. It's not their land. You know, you can't have better. Or what's that movie? Based out of Florida. The one that's based right out of Florida with not Vin Diesel, Ving Rhames, Rosewood.
Oh, okay.
Right. That's what that dynamic was. We had our town, they had their town, but our town looked better than their town. Our houses looked better than their houses. That was not the way it's supposed to be, you know. But we wasn't tripping about it. Basically, they the ones tripping about it when they had every right to have whatever they needed. But I guess for them to have what they needed, we need to be more of a subservient. I'm just, you know, trying to think.
As you see that they want us to always be below them.
Right.
They want us to be reaching to where they're at, having better neighborhoods to come into their neighborhoods and
right.
they say get out of the ghetto.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
We live in poor.
Absolutely.
They keep us there and keep where they have the wealth.
Uh-huh.
We're here because they do see that we're a mighty people, and I think they're not just a mighty people of being unified, but even mighty people when it comes to strength, mindset.
Right.
Not able to break. As they've always said, that we are people that we can't break us easily.
Yeah.
We will stand and we will continue on our journey.
Yeah.
And there's feel like other people wouldn't be able to have done that.
No way, possibly, no way. And like you said, it's all through the Father, because He allowed us to. Without Him, we wouldn't even exist. Seriously, but yeah, absolutely. Nobody else could have come close to and doing the things that we have.
And just real quick, just to say with suicide itself, when it comes to not having that strength mentally,
right?
Most people will look, if they were in our position, they would have committed suicide.
Yep.
So when it comes to thinking about it, because you have that mindset to be able to do that, you're like, I don't know how they can do that. There's no way I can live another day and under the conditions of someone else. And no way would I want to live underneath them.
Right.
Where I don't want to be beneath another nation.
Right.
They look at us as greater, and they have a fear of being beneath us.
Man, and see, then that was the reason why some of them had even, back in the slavery days or whatever, where they created that whole doctrine about how we don't even have a soul, because they say animals don't have souls, but yet they treat the animals better than they treated us. And so to survive that, they had they believed that we didn't have souls either. So, we can do anything to them because they don't have souls, and they survive. They're stronger than us. They're able to endure better than we can. It's deep, the philosophies that came from that whole dynamic. Anyway, verse 10 again, he said, come on and let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when they've fallen out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. That sounds so like what we hear today. So like what we hear today. And it's like, why would we join with the enemy instead of joining with you, who we live right next to? You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's like a scary mentality that this person had, but it was deep-seated hate that they had that would allow them to even think like that. You know, verse 11. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, just like today, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage and mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared Elohim and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men and children. You know, it's funny. Well, when I said I was going to read this, and I didn't really go over it, I just knew where I wanted to deal with it. But then reading this, I said something in a video that I didn't really have proof of, really, but I said it. And now I'm reading this, I'm like, okay. So among us, as being Israelites there, we had some understanding of the Father and His will and His way. You know what I'm saying? There were some of us that lived a life conducive to the Father. Because I had said that in the video because I was trying to make a contrast between Moses' mindset and there may have been others as Israelites that were like us, basically. You know what I'm saying? That were walking in righteousness and whatever. And here is giving examples of these midwives. It said they feared Elohim and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. So that's heavy because these women were, by all practical purposes, in the threat of their own lives to do contrary to what was commanded of them to do. And that's integrity right there. It's like the Father saw the heart of these midwives, and He ended up blessing them because they did contrary against their own lives because of the fear that they had of Him and not the fear of man. That's I didn't even think to look at that, but that's heavy. Again, 17. But the midwives feared Elohim and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, can't you visualize this in your mind? Can't you? Why have you done this thing and have saved the men children alive? And the midwife said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered before the midwives come in unto them. So the Father gave them right.
They already delivered.
Right. And right at that moment, this is what we telling them, hey, you don't do nothing to us. We tried to do what you said. You know what I'm saying? They didn't say like, oh, well, we feared the Father, kill us or whatever. They like, look, this is what happened. If it was our choice, they'd have been gone, but it was already done when we got there. Verse 20, therefore Elohim dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And see, they really didn't even say the truth, but the Father blessed them because He looked at their heart and knew why they did what they did. That's amazing when you look at that. Therefore Elohim dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared Elohim, that He made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that's born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. And again, this goes into the dynamic that you are what your father is. The seed is how you are identified. There ain't no you have this, have that, like we say today. No, the scripture let us know that this is how it is. And even Gentiles know that too, because every time I look at that movie Braveheart, they kind of do a scene where they do this.
Can I say like in Deuteronomy continue to follow to where, say, for instance, you mix with an outside nation, I think it's is it third generation that they,
Mm.
I wasn't sure about, you know, if you, as, I have to find it.
Okay.
Talking about, I'm not sure, yeah.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
if you're back, you know, it being, um, you know, say for instance, you mix with someone of another nation who is not an Israelite,
Mm-hmm.
but within that third generation is almost like you basically at third generation.
Oh, okay. I got to look at that. I hope you find it. I got to check that out.
Okay.
Okay. I don't remember that, but yeah, that sound interesting. Okay, so chapter 2, verse 1. And there went a man of the house of Levi and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. So she eventually did what was commanded of her to do, throw him in the river, right? But she put him in an ark in the river. She didn't just throw him in there. She built the ark. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. So, you know, like I have mentioned before, like how they showed in the movies, she didn't place him in the ark and the ark moved somewhere. She planted him in the flags where it wouldn't move.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It wasn't going and she was falling along. No, she placed in the flags because she knew in her mind what was going to happen to him as it's placed in the flags. And the daughters just stood, Miriam just stood off just to see if it would go down exactly the way she knew it would go down. So verse 4 again, it said, his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. So I think that she knew that that's what was going to happen, because that's obviously where Pharaoh's daughter obviously would go to frequently, okay? And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. Then said his sister, the Pharaoh's daughter. So now his sister, which is Miriam, I guess she like comes out of hiding, and then she speaks directly to Pharaoh's daughter. And she says, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? Because she already knows she's going to call her mother. She's going to call Moses' mother, which is her mother, to come nurse the child.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right, right. Verse 8, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother, which is her mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. So again, you can visualize how this is happening, because it's like, if the woman claimed this child, then in her mind, I don't think I really care if that's the mother or some other Hebrew woman, whatever. This is my child now. So all you're gonna do is nurse the child, but the child, huh?
Like you feeding him.
Right, exactly. But there is no how do I put it? It's nothing to it in their mind, because we're at this point are not really a people. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's no harm because I am Pharaoh's daughter. So ain't no really harm gonna happen, because even if you are nursing your own child, the child belongs to me.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then said and verse 9. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. Now, try to imagine what that was like. You know, what kind of emotions she had to go through, because she physically gave her son to the enemy just because in her mind she thought this is the only way he would survive. But it couldn't have been an easy thing, you know. And she called his name Moses, and she said, because I drew him out the water. So if you'd be surprised how many people, like all the movies show this, and even people that be trying to teach this, they be teaching that Moses didn't know who he was. But the Pharaoh's daughter did not ever try to hide who Moses was. No. At all. Because she wouldn't have named him that, first of all. His name gave it away. The people that knew Pharaoh's daughter knew that she wasn't pregnant. She didn't pretend like she was pregnant. She didn't pretend like she was the one nursing the child. No. But people teach that. Even the movies show that. That, oh, Moses, he never knew who he was. He always knew who he was. And everybody really knew who he was. As being this Hebrew child raised in the Pharaoh's household. Okay? And verse 11, and it came to pass in those days when Moshe was grown, and he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. So him, because he absolutely, as we read other versions of this, he was a ranked Egyptian that fought in the armies, fought wars for Egypt, conquered the Ethiopians, did all that. But when it came down to this particular scene, he was very careful not to be seen, because he knew that even as an Israelite with this rank, he would be killed himself.
Because he was not a true Egyptian.
Right, exactly. But they don't show that in the movie, especially in the Prince of Egypt. It was like, man, matter of fact, in the Prince of Egypt, he was depicted as a mindset of an Egyptian that just thought that what this Egyptian dude was doing was wrong. And he killed him because he felt sorry for the Israelite. But he didn't know he was an Israelite when he did it.
Oh, yeah. But he knew in the Bible, he knows.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And 13, and when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strode together, and he said to him that did the wrong, why smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, who made you a prince and a judge over us? And intendest thou to kill me as thou killest the Egyptian? And Moshe feared and said, surely this thing is known. So the other Israelites knew that he was an Israelite too, or else they wouldn't have even said that to him. Because he wasn't even dressed in the same garb they were dressed in.
And they know. Yeah,
right.
They know who he is.
Yeah, right. You know, and they didn't have no problem stepping to him and saying, who do you think he is? And so, like I said, when I was in the conversation with my friend, I'm like, you know, this is the mindset that you would have had with Moshe. So, just in a comparison, Kaepernick kneels down and say, I'm not going to say this thing, but you, on the other hand, because you are an Israelite, keeping the commandments, you saying, who do Kaepernick think he is? You see what I'm saying? You're not seeing the effects of what this brother is doing. So they're not seeing the effects of him defending an Israelite from an Egyptian. You know, like who you think you are? You know what I'm saying? And they might have been, I'm stretching it a little bit. They might have been like, just like the midwives, like, hey, we're Israelites. We keep the commandments. You an Egyptian, and you know you were raised up as an Egyptian. You don't know nothing about what we've been through. building bricks and building these cities, and you don't know nothing about that. Who you think you are? You know what I'm saying? You probably don't even keep the Sabbath. You probably don't do none of these things. You probably don't even have fear of the Elohim of the Hebrews. You probably be up in there serving Ra and all these other. That's the mindset that they saw Moses. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's the reason why I use this, because I use this for two reasons. Because the mindset that we have in looking at this brother, we don't know where the Father will end up taking him, mm-hmm. but he went out and did what he did, knowing that there was going to be all this backlash, mm-hmm. and all of this stuff. I mean, he was going to lose money. It was not going to be a pretty thing in the sight of this society, but for those of us of his own people that could appreciate it, that'd be good for us. Mm-hmm. But we don't matter to society anyway. And in their mindset, we're not supposed to matter to him. What's supposed to matter to him is that we're paying you millions and millions of dollars. So you shouldn't have no problem getting on that knee. And you can think whatever you want to think in your mind, but stand up and play the role, mm-hmm. and everything will be good. So like I said, that whole dynamic is just deep, and the Father, he looks at, like he looked, even though he had already ordained Moshe for the purpose, but Moshe still decided to do that which was right and killing that Egyptian, even though he knew that could put him in danger. And it not only put him in danger from them, but it also, ironically, made other Hebrews look at him kind of negative, because they already had looked at him negative. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They always saw him as this sellout dude dressed like an Egyptian, not suffering the way he's suffering because he was mm-hmm. fortunate enough to be raised up in Donald Trump's household. So it's a deep thing, but we can't judge righteous actions, because the Father looked at the integrity of Moses and continued. And then also when you even get to we ain't even gonna read it, but even when he was there talking to Moshe on the mount, he spoke to him because he had a specific job for him to do. Go to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Mm-hmm. But Moses, in having this conversation with him, when you read it, Moses trying to get other information. Mm-hmm. Like, when I go to the elders, they're going to ask me what your name is. And he like, the father was basically telling him, look, focus on what I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. All this other stuff that you're asking me about, you're going to get that. But pay attention to what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, I ain't told you to go to Egypt and tell those people to keep my commandments, to do this, that, and the other. No, that's not what I told you. Mm-hmm. I'm giving you one instruction. Mm-hmm. You have to. So in other words, again, when you look at what Colin Kaepernick did, what he did was show that there is a difference between America's anthem, Pledge of Allegiance, from us. Mm-hmm. We're not included in that. Most of us did not know that. You know what I'm saying? Like you say, tradition. But just by him taking the knee, we're learning, wait a minute, that song says that there is no refuge here for the slave. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So so Moses got this job to look, tell him, and go to Israel and let them know that I'm about to bring y'all up out of there. Mm-hmm. You talking to a people that for 400 years didn't know nothing but Egypt. Like we don't know nothing but America. America is all we know. You would ask most of us, and a sister said, Gentile said this on the board. Mm-hmm. You go to Africa, you ain't gonna find nothing but jungles and people living in huts and trees. What you think you do better there? But then we come to see these cities with the brand new cars. They living right, living right. But that ain't what we know. When did you come to the knowledge of that's what it was like in Africa? Because you didn't always know that, did you?
No, not always.
Exactly.
Not always knew that, especially back in the day. All we had was encyclopedias.
Exactly.
But I think the internet has made us more aware.
That's correct.
We've actually gone and visited those
That's
countries,
correct.
but internet has actually been our increasing
Right,
knowledge.
right. But the fulfillment of scripture now is going to and fro, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. But like you say, we all can testify of thinking of Africa as being a place where you go the wrong way, you're going to be eaten by lions, or your own people, black people might even put you in a pot and boil you up. And that's deep. But yeah, that's deep. But again, the Father raised up Moses and saw the integrity that he had, and like, look, this is the mission that you're gonna have. And even though we're not gonna go in there, Abraham was another one that was just like that. Abraham lived in Babylon, basically, in Nimrod's Babylon, with his father. As you know, when we read the other books, he was built idols, created idols, was an idol worshiper, and Abraham knew in his mind that this is not right, this is not correct. He for him to come to that wisdom, he had to think outside of the conventional dynamic that was all around him. And the Father judged Abraham based off of that. And see, we don't read all. It's funny, in the scriptures, we don't even read all that. It goes from, in the 11th chapter, it says, why is that? It says, 11th chapter shows the Tower of Babel. And then in the very first verse of the 12th chapter says, now YAH had said unto Abram, it says, now YAH had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred. We can't even read what it was about Abram that the Father singled him out like that. But in other books we read. Right.
The Apocrypha is in there.
Oh, okay.
You find all the information.
Right. But ain't that tripped out? When you go into the Bible, you don't even see what it was that the Father looked at Abram and set him apart from the other people. But that's what it was. It was the integrity that he had in order to say, this don't make sense to me. And then, he did the thing where he go into the idols and he put the food before the big idol. Right. And then the Father comes in and see all the idols destroyed, but the big one.
He went and told that he was in hiding. Now, you knew that he was in hiding all this time, but now that he destroyed your idol, then you go and tell the king.
Yeah.
Or your own son.
Right. But that was out of fear, see? That's
from the king.
Right.
Not from y'all.
Right, exactly. So again, it's almost like you see where Moses had to overcome fear and to exercise that integrity. The midwives exercised integrity, overcoming their fear, and Abraham did the exact same thing. He had to say, this is not going to be a comfortable dynamic for me. Why? Because we can't read where the Father is talking to them directly. You see what I'm saying? He didn't talk to them directly when they did the initial actions. But after they did the initial actions, now the Father is talking to them because their actions warranted it and they deserved it. So we, like I said, wasn't going to read all into Abraham, but that's the whole thing. When Abraham showed that integrity, the Father dealt with him according to that. Abraham not really having, because when you read that, he don't know nothing, right? He just knows that something ain't right. But he wasn't learned in, X, Y, and Z. He just knew that over there ain't right. Uh-huh.
But he did have, when he went into hiding, he did have
Seth, Shem.
no.
Oh.
No,
I think that's where he went.
No, he didn't have him. He had dang, what is
I think he had sent. I think it says he sent them to Seth. Okay.
No, what is the one he's in? He's more so in the book of the Apocrypha, the
Enoch. Okay.
He had Enoch.
Okay.
Yes, he had
Okay.
Enoch.
Okay. Okay.
It talks about Enoch. So, yes.
Okay. Yeah. But like you said, but he had to get to that point where it's like, okay, now we know he went, like you say, he went into hiding, but the father was able to increase him from that point. Absolutely. Let me see. So that was another example there, and so now we're gonna get into the David, because we're gonna get in. Oh man, I got less than 45. We're gonna get into David in 1 Samuel the 16th chapter. And that was interesting. You brought him up, and he was exactly the great example of this. 1 Samuel, the 16th chapter. Oh, you ain't got your scriptures.
No, I'm trying.
Oh, okay. Because this I should have bought the other one. I left it in the Israelite mobile. Hold on 1 second. Okay. All right. 1 Samuel 16 and verse 1, it says, And Yah said unto Shemuel, How long wilt thou mourn for Shaul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thy horn with oil and go, and I will send thee to YAH, the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons. And Shemuel said, How can I go? If Shaul hear it and see here go that fear, he will kill me. That's just deep how that fear comes into play. And Yahuwah said, Take an heifer with thee and say, so unlike the midwives, the father had to tell him what to say. He wasn't as quick-witted like the midwives was. That's deep. And Yahuwah said, Take a heifer with thee. And he might have been exasperated, like, oh man, why you ain't like the midwives? Take a heifer with thee and say, I am come to sacrifice to Yahuwah. And call YAH to the sacrifice, and I will show thee what thou shalt do, and thou shalt anoint unto me him whom I name unto thee. And Shemuel did that which Yahuwah spake, and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, Comest thou peaceably? Because they knew if he came around, it may not have been something good. That's funny. It's funny because that was the power that he had as the prophet of Yah. But yet, in his carnal mindset, he still feared the king and what he could do. That's deep. And he said, Peaceably I am come to sacrifice unto Yahuwah. Sanctify yourselves, and come with me to the sacrifice. And he sanctified YAH and his sons, and called them to the sacrifice. And it came to pass when they were come, that he looked on Eliab, and said, Surely Yahuwah's anointed is before him. Because he looked just like Shaul, actually. Tall, same image, basically. But Yahuwah said unto Shemuel, Look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For Yahuwah seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but Yahuwah looketh on the heart. Absolutely. And YAH called Abinadab and made him pass before Shemuel. He said, Neither have Yahuwah chosen this. And Yeshai made Shema to pass by, and he said, neither have Yahuwah chosen this. Again, Yeshai made 7 of his sons to pass before Shemuel, and Shemuel said unto Yeshai, Yah have not chosen these. And Shemuel said unto Yeshai, are here all thy children? And he said, there remain yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Shemuel said unto Yeshai, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent and brought him in, and now he was ruddy and withal of a beautiful countenance and goodly to look to. And Yahuwah said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. And Shemuel took the horn of war and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of Yah came upon David from that day forth. So Shemuel rose up and went to Ramah. And the Spirit of Yah departed from Shaul, and the evil spirit from Yahuwah troubled him. So it's deep, because all of the other brothers looked as if they would be somebody that they would lead the people, that the people would follow. Now, David didn't have that look at all. But David had heart. His heart was way mightier than his brothers. And the father looked at that. And we would never have been able to see it from our own eyes, but the father saw it. Okay, we're going to skip down into the 17th chapter. 17th chapter, verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered together in their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shoko, which belonged to Yahudah, and pitched between Shoko and Azekah and Ephraim. And Shaul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of Philistines. I sometimes tear up when I read this, because certain things make me tear up. I want to try not to tear up, because it's crazy. Whose height was 6 cubits and a span. And you over there sitting in the Pisces, right? That's what you're thinking, right? I know. Okay, and he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, why are you come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Shaul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Shaul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of the Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Yahudah, whose name was Yeshai. And he had 8 sons, and the men went among men for an old man in the days of Shaul. And the 3 eldest sons of Yeshai went and followed Shaul to the battle. And the names of the 3 sons that went to battle were Eliab, the firstborn, next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Shaul. And David went and returned from Shaul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Yeshai said unto David his son, take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses until the captain. I forgot that they had cheese there. No wonder I like cheese so much. I just bought me some Giordano's from Orlando yesterday. I'm going to go home and enjoy that just because I read this. And carry these 10 cheeses. I forget that that's there. Until the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Did y'all remember it was cheeses?
No, I didn't. I stopped eating dairy.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to stop.
Cheese
It
and
makes me
dairy.
sick.
Yeah.
But only certain cheeses make me sick though. But
All dairy butter too.
Yeah.
As far as the time when you go out to other restaurants.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I need to learn how to make a Giordano's vegan cheese mozzarella.
they have it.
Yeah. Wow. Man. Now Shaul and they and all the men, verse 19, of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as YAH had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and Philistine had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. And the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man that has come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up, and it shall be that the man who killeth him, and the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, what shall be done to the man that killed this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living Elohim? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, so shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, now this is the oldest brother, the first one that came before Shaul with YAH. And Shemuel was like, surely this is the one that's going to rule. Absolutely. He looked like Shaul. He looked just like him, tall, like, man going to follow this cat here. And so here he hear his little brother, a whelp, having this conversation with these people. Verse 28 again, Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thy heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. That's funny how he defined his little brother's actions. See, David was a Pisces. He defined his actions as so contrary to what he absolutely was.
Who was a Pisces?
David.
You think he was?
Yeah, I think he was. Huh? Because he was misunderstood. We always misunderstood for the bad part. But that we in the 28th verse. Yeah. And but that's what he said. He said, and I'm gonna read again, 28th verse. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride. So see, he falsely accused his little brother based off of how his little brother is. The 28th verse. This is Eliab, the oldest brother, rebuking Dawid.
Yeah.
Talking about, I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart. See, that's how I'm saying that wasn't true, but that's how he interpreted it. It's the same way Joseph was interpreted as being haughty. He's telling this dream, and it's like, look, I dreamed that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down and worshiped before me. Now, Joseph is, because the dream seemed real, but the brothers is looking at him like, oh, see, you think you something. You know, you think that you the best out of all of us. But that wasn't where Joseph's mindset was. He was really trying to figure out how deep this dream was. And so it's the same thing with David's actions. It's like David was just he was bold. He was fearless. But they interpreted his boldness and his fearlessness as being naughty and being prideful. Huh? That's deep. And that's what he said, 29, he says, and David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? You know, like, maybe y'all still upset because I had got anointed some days back. You passed by and the father like, nope. You know, and so like, but when I was like, look, I didn't even go in the house, okay? I was out there keeping sheep while y'all was in there having y'all little shindig. And then they called me in there. I don't even know why they called me in there. I walked in there with cheese and stuff. I thought that's what y'all wanted. So 29 again, David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another and spake out of the same manner. Like he said, look, later for you, big bro. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spoke, they rehearsed them before Shaul, and he sent for him. And David said to Shaul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with the Philistines. So this cat was cold-blooded. He's like, y'all all are fearful, and I can't even relate to the fear. I don't even feel this that y'all are feeling. That's heavy. And he said, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with the Philistine. And Shaul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Shaul, thy servant, and see, here it is right here. Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. But see,
because he probably was a little dude.
Yeah.
Grabbing him by the beard.
But see, the father saw all of this though. See, the father saw all this stuff. If nobody else saw it, the father saw it. All he could do was tell about it. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he had defied the armies of the living Elohim. David said, moreover, Yahuwah that delivered me out of the paw of the lion, out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Shaul said unto David, go, and Yah be with thee. So, and I'm pretty sure, I can't really, no, we know what? Let's go with this. Because of the fact that David had been anointed also, he knew that, I think that was his protection too, I think. Because he figured like, I'm going to do this because of Yah. And so therefore, he's going to preserve me because I am anointed for a purpose.
You're going to give me strength. Yeah.
Right.
He had, actually, he basically trusted
Right.
the Father.
Right.
Most people don't. They look
Right. Like the prophet Shemuel, like what we just read, right. Right.
I will deliver you all.
Right. Right.
Go and do as I say.
Mm-hmm. Verse 38, and Shaul armed David with his armor, and he put a helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Shaul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And see, he had sense. Because the average man would have been like, oh man, this is nice. This is nice. Oh man, I'm about to wreak havoc with this. Right, exactly. And verse 40, he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even in a scrip, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. I love this part. And the Philistine came on and drew near to David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his Elohim. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou,
You are not going to cry.
this is just deep to me. Thou, excuse me, it's stupid. Thou comest to me with the sword and with the spear and with the shield. But I come to thee in the name of Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defiled. I'm cool. This day will Yahuwah deliver thee into my hand, and I will smite thee and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcass of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a Elohim in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that Yahuwah saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is Yahuwah's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass when the Philistines, I don't know why, it's certain things that I read in scripture that just move me. I don't know why. Like another place is every time I read about Joseph dealing with his brothers, that I don't know, it just hit me.
That is bad.
Huh?
That part is bad.
But this right here, it's like, man, it's just.
This part get me like, what?
Okay. Verse 47. This assembly shall know that Yahuwah saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is Yahuwah's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hasted. This man, he hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. That's deep. He ran. He wasn't like just kind of being strategic, hiding and about to run. He's like he just ran toward him. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it and smote the Philistine in the forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead and he fell upon his face to the earth. So again, anyway, I just like, because you said, David, and I was going to read it, that the father judged him by his heart. David, more than likely, had not attained to all the knowledge, you know, the particulars, like even what we know for the most part. But he judged him according to his heart, like he judged Abraham according to his heart, just like he judged Moshe into his heart. So again, when I look at this brother, Colin Kaepernick, it's like, you don't know how you gonna judge him when all you can judge him by is his actions. You can't judge him because, oh, what the brother doing today? Is he keeping the Shabbat today? Well, if ain't nobody taught him about the Shabbat, then more like he ain't keeping the Shabbat. But you got to be of some kind of righteous dynamic to be able to
Yeah, because I don't think Moshe would have been keeping the Shabbat.
No, absolutely not. He lived as an Egyptian.
Right.
He lived as an Egyptian.
And y'all called
You
him,
know,
so-
we read that before you came in. When I did the video, right, I said that I'm sure that in Israel, when we were slaves, that there were some Israelites that knew that, you know, were somewhat like us, but Moshe was not in that number, basically. And then when we read it, we read about the midwives. It said they feared Elohim. And I was like, wow, I didn't even think of that when I did the video.
Yeah, the 3 wise men feared Elohim.
Right. But I'm just saying the midwives was there as slaves in Egypt. And right, the Pharaoh said kill him, and they like, oh no, we can't kill him. So they knew.
And they came up with
I
a
know what I can.
And that's what I'm saying, right? And they came, huh?
I know what I can and can't do. Like, oh, I can do that. That's not, you know.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, when we get to the stool, they already know what's
Mhm.
ready up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what we supposed to do? As soon as they sit down, the
Right.
baby just plopped out.
And see, and look, here's another. I mean,
He was right.
right, and here's the other thing, and I don't want to lose sight of this too. It ain't just the integrity, but also because in this particular time of Dawid right here, the Philistines were ruling over us at this point. Because we kept being wicked, and he would bring up the Philistines to rule over us, and they had the upper hand even in this time before the father raised up David to bring them back. But and in the other examples, you had Abraham going against the Chaldeans, the rulers in his day, you know, and again the same Moses with Egypt. Egypt were the rulers.
There's always some rebellion. Even what's his name? Those 3 Hebrews.
And that's where I'm about to read. I'm about to read that right now.
Okay.
I am
I ain't gonna go
right, but that's exactly. See, that's funny. Y'all giving me the lesson because she said David before. I said, "Oh, I'm about to read about David," and then you just did the same thing. I'm about to go there in the Book of Daniel right now. Exactly. Last time I even read this, taught this in the lesson, I was in Tampa when I did this, and they were like, "Wow." I got a video of that too. This is Daniel, the 3rd chapter. And see, this right here is very fitting when we read this. Daniel, the 3rd chapter, and I'm going to begin this with the first verse. Okay.
Daniel 3.
Mm-hmm.
And what verse?
Verse 1. You want to read that? Can you?
Daniel chapter 3.
Okay, never mind. I'll read it.
Oh, no, I got it. Verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
I got it. I'm not gonna cry,
No, I'm all cried out. That's embarrassing. I hate when I do that. I can't help myself.
Ready?
Uh-huh.
Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and its breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried out, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and language, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up."
Okay, now see, look, in our mindset, we read this and we trying to imagine this. What he have here, just to put into perspective, is an orchestra. but we don't read orchestra. We just read the different instruments, right? And to us, it appears like they were just making a sound.
So it's a national anthem.
That's what I was about to say. That's exactly what I was about to say. That's what I was about to say exactly. But see, we reading it just like it just.
Almost like that sound like a, like the coming of the king.
Right.
Coming, and you have that sound.
Right. Right. Hail to the chief. Hail to the chief. Right.
Okay, we hear
Right.
To shut up and
Right. But see, that's why I've said it's an orchestra, but just to put it into perspective. Because when you read it, it just sounds like these were just various musicians that made a noise with their instruments, whatever.
Right.
But he all he did was just broke down what he had there.
Right.
He didn't even tell you how many pieces it was. But it was an orchestra, and just like she said, it was an anthem that they absolutely played. And the only difference is we're told to stand,
and put our hands.
but they're told to bow. Right, but they're told to bow for theirs. Okay, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, and verse 6. And this is what they telling us. Go ahead.
And whoso falls not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, the psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews, or Yahudis. Would there be Jews at that time?
Yeah, the reason why
There were.
right, the reason why they're called that at that, well, the reason why they called that at the time, well, ever since there was Yahuda as a nation,
Okay.
they called them Yahudis or whatever, right?
I wasn't sure if it was
Right.
If he was on the scene yet. Okay. So wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Yahudis. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and a dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falls not down and worship, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace.
Now check this out, and you could even imagine at this time, because see, to us we hear this, even when you probably first read this, you probably read it with a little sense of that this was a fearful thing that was happening. I know I did. That it was kind of like oh man, these people are being forced to, but these people probably did not feel like that at all. They probably thought that, man, this is time to celebrate. Because that image is no different than a Christmas tree. Huh? Exactly. Well, yeah, cross, Christmas tree, right. Which is a time to what? Celebrate. Right. We see that Christmas tree. Oh, man, because it looks so beautiful. Look at the lights. Oh, I must be singing. All this, huh?
Image of an angel.
Yes, all that. Right.
Or in some people, like in Brazil, they carry an image of Mary.
Right.
The statue with the
they do.
and everybody fall after it and run after it.
Right.
It's just a small little
Right.
thing that
So, I mean, even though the king commanded, but it was like, hey, this is what we do. This is going to be good. We are all going to enjoy. We got all these beautiful people of all other nations here enjoying this festive occasion. Like Trump said, it's going to be huge. Man, but as you just said, it's almost like you could just plant yourself there and really see exactly what was happening. And here come the party poopers. Right. While we celebrating this anthem, because that's what they want to see. When you go to the game and dun 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 dun, you don't want to see nobody sitting down in their seats. You're feeling good. cats in there. They don't ruin your whole mood. Hey, is that not how that's how it works? I was feeling good, so why can't I just celebrate it and not look at them? But I can't even. That's how they think, because they done messed this whole thing up for me.
Almost like when it was a cartoon and the guys, no, not a cartoon, it was a movie and a cartoon. They said they went to this park and it was like, and every time they show people going into like amusement parks and movies, and they're like, I don't want to see any unhappy faces. Like that third movie with the what's the Ocean's 11.
Okay.
And they opened up the casino and the lady said, all these unhappy faces in the beginning of I don't want to see them. Get rid of them.
Oh, okay.
That's
that. Okay. I don't remember that scene, but I could. Yeah, exactly.
That's how they feel when they see us sitting down or kneeling, whatever. It's like, I don't want to see them.
Right.
That's what they want.
Right.
I don't want
Yeah. Yep. Wow. And so that's exactly what this was. Go ahead.
Okay. There are certain Yahudim whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and the bad Negro.
Yep, that's what they call them. That's what they call them.
These men, O king, have not regarded you. They serve not your God, your elves, or your idols, nor worship the golden image which you have set up.
And see, and here, now, unlike the other examples that we gave, these three, or actually four, because Daniel was in the midst of them too, they had understanding, straight up. They learned even before they came before the Babylonians, because they came in and said, oh man, we can't eat this meat, and they didn't eat the meat. You're right. And what I mean, man, all the other people will have to be turned off, because these cats should be thankful to even be in our presence, to be even bought here in this grand castle, contrary to the rest of their people that's out there, can't even come in here. But then I'm talking about, you can't even eat the meat.
And then they also said it was the king's shares. So the king is sharing his food with you, and you don't even want to have it.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I come and invite you to it.
That's
and you
right.
want to eat my food.
Right. And then so you trying to tell me that what you got is better than this?
And that's when you want to throw that scripture, man, should not live by bread.
Right. Absolutely. So the thing is, when you read what you just read, there are certain Yahudim who you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, these men, O king, they have not regarded you. They serve not your gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Man, you can see this parallel is just so deep. 13.
Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and the bad Negro, or Abednego. I can't say that.
Yeah.
Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Go not ye, do not ye serve my idols, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made, well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast into the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Who is that Elohim that shall deliver you out of my hands? Wow, that was kind of blasphemous. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said, to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful. Like that.
I know, that's right, exactly.
We are not careful to answer.
See, if I wasn't all cried out, I'd have probably cried reading that. That is a hell of a way to start off speaking to the king. We are not careful. When I had did that, you got to see it's called Josiah Israel Speaks in Tampa. If you search that in YouTube, you'll see it. I did this, and when I read that, you can hear people say, "Ooh, That's, you could, and it was Yeshe that did that too. Like, ooh, because it would hit them like, wow. But that was, they started off saying, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter.
If it be so, our Elohim, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king.
He say, and he will. If it be so, then hey, regardless of what you just told us, right? Because you asking who is his Elohim? Well, hey, if it's his will, he gonna show it. He gonna show you. But go ahead. 18.
Okay. But if not, be it known unto you, O king, that we will not serve your Elohims or your idols, nor worship the golden image which you have set up.
Right. So these three brothers had no assurance of their lives. The father had not came to them and told them, oh, go ahead and do it. You good. No way. In their mind said, this is our last day. Seriously. Go ahead.
Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spoke and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was.
This is Donald Trump right here, boy.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
He do seem like a Gemini.
Yeah. No, and you're right, because you know they're goofy or something like sometimes. And when you because when you read the next chapter, the words that he's saying, well, we'll read that later. But you're right though. He has a slowness to him, just like Donald Trump. It's crazy. You're not a Gemini, are you? I hope. I'm glad I didn't want we offending people. Yeah.
Oh, Gemini like that.
I know, but the one.
Just Donald Trump stupid stuff.
No. Kanye West, our brother Kanye West. I could name them all.
Going through something mental because his mom. I gotta give him.
No.
There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. We can't even.
Right.
In what he's doing.
Right.
The people he's surrounded by.
I think that's what it is. It's a lot more than that.
Going on.
Yeah.
Then we have.
His mother passed and he went right to the lion's den. And when I called.
Well, everybody go through stuff like that, Tyler. Everybody go through that stuff. I don't have mom, dad, grandma, granddad. I don't have no uncles. I don't have nobody. So that's no excuse. The brother.
Right, but you're also not sitting in the lion's den either.
No, that's no excuse.
No, but he put himself there.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's still happy to be there too. So.
Because he feels like he has nobody.
He has people.
Yeah, come on. No. She said what would come out of my mouth. And
I don't care what y'all say. I'm giving Kanye benefit of the doubt.
No, he don't get no benefit. Yeah, well, give Trump the benefit of the doubt because he ain't got nobody either.
New York, I can't. I really can't.
You got a point there. You got a point there. Touche.
Y'all can give Chicago a chance.
Okay, but you got a point there. But go ahead.
And he commanded the most. Oh wait, where am I at? Furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spoke and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the son of Elohim.
What? Wait a minute, is this the Old Testament I'm reading? Wait, is this the Old or New Testament? I don't remember. Wow.
Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High Elohim, come forth and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was an hair of their heads singed, neither were their coats. This would have just made me pee. All kinds of stuff just come out. Coats changed, nor the smell of the fire had passed on them.
Mm-hmm.
Then Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said, Blessed be the Elohim of Shadrach.
Right, because for them to come forth, they actually had to come and pass by the carcasses
of the 3 men,
of the, however, yeah, many, right, that threw them in there. That's crazy.
and they gone.
Right.
And the fire was that hot.
Right.
Nothing happened.
Right, and they wasn't even in the
I
fire.
would have lost my house
Yeah.
right there. I'm done.
Right.
And he, who went and sat, wait a minute, where am I at? Then Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said, Blessed be the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who have sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any Elohim except their own Elohim. Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language will speak anything amiss against the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other Elohim that can deliver after this sort. So you think that he would change?
Right, and he did. That's the thing.
That's what makes sense.
Right, exactly. Right,
Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.
Mm-hmm. Then you go in the very next chapter, and he's speaking in the first. In the first, man, read that. Yeah, 4 and 1.
Nebuchadnezzar the king, unto all the people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high Elohim hath wrought toward me. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians and the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But at the last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belshazzar, according to the name of my deity.
Right, idol, God, whatever. Right.
Whom is the spirit of the
right. You see what I'm
righteous
saying?
deity.
Holy. Right. No, they're not righteous.
But I can't say righteous.
Right.
Holy deity. And before him, I told the dream, saying.
You see what I'm saying? Because in his mind, it's a multiple deities,
Yeah.
basically.
Excuse me, we closing, sir.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
I'm so tired.
All right.
Okay.
Locking it down.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Anyway, but anyway, that was basically the gist of it, and just showing the comparison of how the integrity and the what's the other word for it? Faith and integrity of these men moved them in a certain way in which the Father basically blessed them through their faith and integrity. So again, with the Colin Kaepernick thing, we don't know what's going to be the end to it, but one thing we do know is that he had a heart for his people. Just like Moses had a heart for his people, that he couldn't stand there and watch that Egyptian smite without doing it. Right.
Real quick, remember I was telling you about that one verse?
Yeah.
It was Deuteronomy
Ooh.
23, verse 7. And it's like persons included in the congregation. He said, Thou shalt not
Oh,
abhor
yeah.
an Ammonite, for he is thy brother, and thou
Mhm.
shalt not abhor an Egyptian, for thou wast a stranger in this land. For the children that were begotten of them shall enter to the congregation
Okay,
of
yeah, got it.
our
Put it on
Elohim in the
people.
third generation.
Okay,
That's all.
okay,
I was just,
right, saying about how, okay.
yeah.
Wait, hold on for a second, let me get out of this.